The presidential decree to convene the electoral colleges for the election of regional councillors is signed by His Excellency Paul Biya. The election will hold on December 6, 2020 in the chief town of each division of the country. An analysis of the decree in this newscast. Good evening and thanks for joining us. That was our lone headline on the 7:30 News.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.
This edition of the 7:30 News with a reading of this decree number 2020/547 of the 7th of September 2020 to convene the electoral colleges for the election of regional councillors. The President of the Republic, mindful of the Constitution, mindful of law number 2012/1 of 19th of April 2012 relating to the Electoral Code and all subsequent amendments thereto, hereby decrees as follows. Article 1. The electoral colleges are hereby convened to the chief town of each division on Sunday, the 6th of September, the 6th of December 2020 for the election of regional councillors. Article 2. Voting shall begin at 8 a.m. and shall end at 6 p.m. Article 3. This decree shall be registered, published according to the procedure of urgency and inserted in the official gazette in English and in French. It is signed by the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya, today, the 7th of September 2020. The presidential decree convening the electoral colleges for regional councillors has thus been signed by the head of state, Paul Biya. The election will take place in the chief town of each division on Sunday, the 6th of December 2020. What is the significance of this decision in the democratization process of Cameroon? With us is the Central Director of Radio, editorialist, Dr. George Wale. Good evening.
Good evening, Esther.
Thanks for joining us on the 7:30 News.
It's my pleasure once again.
What's your first reading of this presidential decree?
Yes, my first reading of this decree is that the convening of the regional council elections by the President of the Republic states, it's a clear proof that the President of the Republic has an eye on the ball, so to speak. The ball here, the complete and total democratization process of the political landscape in Cameroon that you did mention a few minutes ago. Remember, Esther, that the democratization as a policy is a hallmark of the New Deal, that is of the President of the Republic since 1982. You also remember that in one of his earliest interviews in a French radio channel, the President did state that he would like to be remembered as one who brought democracy and prosperity to Cameroon. Let me also recall that Article 1, Sub 2 of our Constitution states clearly that the Republic of Cameroon is a decentralized unitary state, that it shall be one and indivisible, secular, democratic, and dedicated to social service. It shall recognize, and I want to lay emphasis on this, it shall recognize and protect traditional values and conform to democratic principles. Now, during his swearing-in speech at the National Assembly, President Paul Biya swore to expedite the putting in place of regions and devolve powers to local collectivities or local authorities. Now, over the years, Esther, the President of the Republic has kept his eye on this democratic ball after the putting in place of Parliament, which you cover so brilliantly, and other democratic structures. The one thing left to have a 360-degree turnaround in a democratic process remains the putting in place of regions with decentralized entities. And this is where the convening of the Electoral College this evening gains its importance. Now, many people have said that it has taken long, but I want to say that the length of time taken is justified by the diligence and the finesse that the President of the Republic, head of state, brings to bear on this democratization process, because for him, it is not a trifling matter. It has to move steadily but diligently. Another justification for these elections is the reinforcement of our responsible participation of Cameroonians in the management of public affairs through the effective transfer of competencies and means to local and regional authorities. Again, the organization in December, that's on December 6, 2020, of these regional elections is justified by the provision of a special status to the Northwest and to the Southwest regions. Now, these elections will now permit the government of Cameroon to, so to speak, concentrate on the implementation of the presidential policy of greater opportunities under the leadership of the President of the Republic himself for emergence by 2035. When I say concentrate, I mean that when powers are devolved to local authorities, the local authorities can take up the baton. Remember that President Paul Biya endorsed these recommendations during the major national dialogue. And I think, to keep a long story short, that these elections are vital, they're important, they're without any doubt the most important elections.
And how important is it for political parties to take part in these elections?
Of course, political parties have to take part in these elections. The regional elections are important for every political party that has councils, and they knew that this election was going to hold anytime soon. So it is important for every political party to take part in the elections so that you give our country what we've always asked for: regionalization and the devolvement of, the separation of powers that we're asking for, especially the empowerment of our local authorities and local councils. Now, I know that your question is linked to some political parties that do not want to participate, that may be asking for a boycott to these elections. What I want to say is that they cannot ask for something and want the contrary. What do I mean by this? That political party leaders asking for a boycott of these elections until the crisis is resolved have not understood, in fact, the text in question. They should understand that the regional elections and the special status is part of the solution to the crisis in the Northwest and the Southwest region. Therefore, they cannot pretend to love Anglophones.
And that brings me to the last question. Yes. What is going to be changing specifically in the Northwest and the Southwest regions after these elections on the 6th of December?
A lot is going to change. A lot is going to change. The first thing is the spirit of nostalgia. All right? You know that one of the reasons for this crisis is that the English-speaking Cameroonians, that is those from the Southwest and the Northwest regions, thought that their culture had been eroded, okay? That the educational system had been eroded, that their legal system had been eroded. So now you have a possibility of having, nostalgically, what we call the House of Chiefs. All right?
Or the Houses of Chiefs.
Yeah, we say the House of Chiefs because the two regions each will have its own House of Chief. And so this is nostalgic, but it's also very important because the House of Chiefs will permit the chiefs to have a seat. Remember, what we call communal humanism is fostered by chiefdoms, where people live together, where the chiefs control the environment, where people can go up to the chief and solve problems amicably. It is very important. It's one of the main facets of the Anglo-Saxon system. You also have what we call a public independent conciliator. In other places, you talk about an ombudsman. And this ombudsman is important. He's not a legal officer, but it's simply somebody who mediates between, amicably of course, between the regional councillors and the citizens. Remember that in the Anglo-Saxon system, citizens have a right to question.
Absolutely.
Right? To question those who govern them. So briefly, these are some of the issues that will come to play on the ground, and I think it is important. Let me repeat once again before I leave. I know you are eager to have me away. That boycotters are losers.
Thank you very much, Dr. George Iwane, for being our guest on the 7:30 News tonight. With the convening of the electoral colleges for regional council elections on the 6th of December, the head of state is in line with the provisions of the electoral code. As provided by the law, the election shall hold 90 days after the summon. Kaylee and Difon now reports on what happens from the day of the convocation, which is today, to polling day.
Section 245 sub 2 of the Electoral Code refers to Section 230 of the same law on the conditions to convene the Electoral College made up of divisional delegates and traditional rulers of the first, second, and third classes. Section 230 is complemented by other provisions which state that the Electoral College for regional elections is convened by presidential decree. Section 187 of the Code says 60 days following the convening of the Electoral College, Electoral Board of Elecam shall draw up and publish the list of qualified candidates before the day of the poll. Regional elections campaigns are regulated by Sections 87 and 95 of the Electoral Code, while Section 87 states that the campaign shall open on the 15th day preceding the elections. Section 95 says, unless authorized by the competent administrative authorities with territorial jurisdiction, meetings may not hold on public highways. Like other elections in Cameroon, regional elections shall be held on Sunday.
The law relating to the Electoral Code clearly stipulates who is eligible to be voted and defines how the elections are to be carried out, while delegates of divisions shall be elected through a mixed single-round ballot comprising of a majority system and a proportional representation system. Traditional rulers' representatives will be elected through a single-round majority list system. Ebenezer Akanga tells us more.
Section 243 sub 1 of the Electoral Code clearly spells out who are regional councillors. It says regional councillors shall be delegates of divisions elected by indirect universal suffrage and representatives of traditional rulers elected by their peers. They shall be elected for a term of office of 5 years and shall be eligible for re-election. According to Section 246 sub 1, the regional council shall reflect the various sociological components of the region and gender aspects. For the election of regional councillors, each division shall constitute a constituency, but the law provides that certain constituencies could be warded because of their peculiar situation. This shall be by a decree of the President of the Republic. Section 248 sub 1 states that delegates of divisions shall be elected by an electoral college comprising municipal councillors, while representatives of traditional rulers shall be elected by an electoral college composed of first, second, and third degree native traditional rulers whose designation has been approved in accordance with the regulation in force. On qualification of candidates, the Electoral Code stipulates that no person may stand for election into a regional council unless effectively resident in the region concerned. However, non-residents of the region may stand for election into a regional council if they are domiciled within the territory of the region concerned.
The election of regional councillors will pave the way for the reinforcement of the population's participation in the management of public affairs. In the Northwest region, where regional assemblies and House of Chiefs will go operational, it is a feeling of relief for most inhabitants. Our reporter Eric Langmia-Wufo compiled their reactions.
Presidential move announcing the imminent holding of the regional elections is expected to address the present state of affairs.
There is this issue of the special status of the Northwest and the Southwest region, and this special status is going to come in, part of it has to pass through the constitution and the creation of the regional councils.
There are others who expect the regional council to speed up the decentralization process and also fast-track development.
These people who are coming in at the regional level should understand that they should that we follow up the road networks within the region, the subdivisions, and where we need a division.
Is to take into consideration the effective implementation of the decentralized system of government.
This to be a reality. They are requesting men and women of integrity to be part of a regional council.
I'd like to see Cameroonians who are patriotic, who have the country at heart, so that they will now invest all their energies, all their synergies to ensure that our country develops and moves forward.
The Northwest region is expected to be represented by 70 delegates and 20 traditional authorities from all the 7 divisions that make up the region.
In the southwest region, like in the northwest, where a special status has been conferred to following the resolutions of the major national dialogue, the decree announcing the date of the election of regional councillors is highly welcomed. It is an indication of government's commitment to intensify the transfer of competencies to local collectivities, as we hear in this report by Guy Roger Nana.
Many have expressed the desire to have selfless leaders who place the interest of their communities before that of the party.
We need people who would, of course, go beyond party lines. Individuals who would who take into consideration the concerns of the people down there at grassroots level.
The worries of the local populations are expected to be better addressed.
Now that Cameroon is getting into some new level of democracy, it will be right for us to get into this action with a lot of morality. We should look for people who are development oriented. We should look for people who have not sold their consciences because they are looking for some cheap appointments and all of that.
House of Chiefs has also been described by many as a unique chance to bring the much solicited change.
They are not going there to give motions of support. They are going there to add value to the governance policy of Cameroon.
When the time is right, a total of 90 pioneer regional councillors will bear the faith of the Southwest region in their hands. In this part of the country, it is generally hoped that they will be true patriotic agents of development for the region and the country as a whole.
We'll now take you over to the North region, where the decree has also been considered as a strong move to fast-track the decentralization process desired by the population. Our reporter, Vanessa Snamung, has the details.
Convening voters to the polls for the regional elections is a wise and timely decision, according to many in the North.
We have been earnestly waiting for this convening. It is legitimate and heartwarming because we, all our children, are hoping to be part of this regional council. We have been waiting for this moment. We are ready to take part in these regional elections and hoping to get members of our party in this regional council.
Given that it will be the country's first ever regional elections, the wish of many is for the process to unfold hitch-free.
We will try to execute, to realize all the programme.
We do not want these elections to be disturbed by unlawful persons. Our wish is that it should be done in honesty. These elections will ease the establishment of the decentralization phase.
Meanwhile, political parties and traditional authorities in the North, upon the head of state's convocation, are preparing to actively take part in these regional elections for an efficient establishment of this other phase of decentralization.
Traditional rulers are part of the electoral colleges, as 20 of them will be elected in each region. For those of these custodians of tradition from the northwest and southwest regions who have fled their chiefdoms and fondoms, the challenge is real. Kilian Dandifon probes into some of the measures taken.
The close to 4-year-old armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions has, among many undesirable consequences, displaced traditional rulers who are part of the Electoral College convened for December 6. The custodians of tradition are taking measures to go back to their communities.
Many of us, as I speak, are already at our regional headquarters. And from there, others are looking how to get to divisional, why not villages.
Beyond these measures, they are on a peace mission.
We have to start talking to ourselves, talk to the elites, find out if some of our children are still in the bushes, in the areas concerning specific villages, find out what their mindset may be and what they think we can do at our immediate level to soften the ground on which they tread.
Some of them have lost everything and need a push.
This crisis has hit many of us, Even the boys have suffered. Promises made to them have failed. Many of them are regretting. So we have to encourage them not to feel bad.
Whatever the conditions in the constituencies which are divisions, the election has been convened.
In the political aspect, Section 215 of the Electoral Code, as amended in March 2019, outlines that candidates representing divisions shall be nominated by political parties, where there is a single seat in a constituency resulting from warding or special grouping. The candidate representing the division shall be selected by a political party. Moki Edwin Kinzika tells us more.
On the 2nd of September, President Paul Biya signed a decree attributing the various regional council seats per division. It was a sign of another momentum in Cameroon's democratic process. The excitement among political parties is visible.
I'm profoundly satisfied. And basically, this is exactly what we have been waiting for so long. This is everything we did struggle for. This is everything people have been looking for and asking. I mean, it's just come to meet, I would say, a popular demand.
It is an opportunity for us to go in for the election because our participation in the election is going to create a lot, not only at the level of the institution, but equally at the level of those candidates who will be taking part in the election. Our participation for the election is equally going to be as a result of impacting local development of the population.
Regional councils are governing bodies that control the cultural, economic, educational, health, social and sporting activities of each of the 10 regions of the country. It is in line with the law on regional and local authorities prepared in fulfillment of the recommendations of the major national dialogue.
And the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, will be granting a press declaration today. And on standby, we have Fonka Motabo Bernard, who will be giving us tidbits on what will be happening. Hello, Fonka. We have difficulties getting Fonka Motabo Bernard there. We'll get back to the civil society that has been reacting to today's decree on the holding of elections for regional councillors. They believe it is a positive move to render local governance closer to the people and to provide an opportunity for communities to design development projects that tie with their reality. Charles Ebune reports on their reactions.
One bone of contention between the government and the Cameroonian civil society in particular, especially the implementation of the 1996 constitution, has been the time taken to implement one key policy option, the decentralization process.
This decree actually comes to put in place the new Cameroon that the head of state spoke of in his last intervention on television in December.
According to the Cameroonian civil society, it is timely to hold the elections now in order to complete, especially the special statute.
This new Cameroon can only be seen by the putting in place of the regional assemblies and the regional councils. That is when the people will actually feel the impact of decentralization. This election that has been called, it is a worthwhile, praiseworthy, something that the rest of the population have been waiting for.
Between the government and the Cameroonian civil society, especially on the regional election issue and the implementation of the decentralization process, it has been an issue of time, but all are on the same track.
At the headquarters of some political parties in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, there is a degree of excitement as potential candidates have begun charting the way forward. At the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, sympathizers are awaiting the party's circular specifying the modalities for the election. As we hear this report by Joyce Kimbi Fowaju.
Despite an apparent tranquility, the CPDM party is silently beefing up the necessaries towards the upcoming maiden regional elections in the country.
Through that, the circular that will be signed either by the national president or by the secretary general, the modalities of the CPDM's participation are well stated. In its preamble, it will state how the CPDM expects to participate in terms of its conduct
its attitude, its comportment, its language.
In expectation, therefore, of the precious secular, experienced CPDM party diehards can give a pointer to whether it will be done by the primaries or through investiture.
But for the CPDM, consultations are always important, and consensus is always important. And once that is gotten, we are always at ease. We know that when election time comes, our candidates will win.
Without fear of contradiction, one can rightly say the ruling party, the CPDM, will stick to its already tested modality in choosing its flag-bearer candidate to the upcoming regional elections in Cameroon.
As we announced earlier, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanga Nji, is about now holding a press briefing following the presidential decree that fixes the date of regional elections in Cameroon for December 6. Fonka Bobena is standing by at the ministry. Hello, Bobena, tell us, what's the latest?
Good evening, Kima. Good evening, viewers of the 7:30 News. We are standing at the National, all waiting for the statement to be made here any moment from now by Minister Paul Atanga Nji. He's expected to address, obviously, the convening of the electorate for Sunday, the 6th of December, 2020, for regional council elections. It is worth noting that, obviously, some parties before now expressed concerns over security, as has been the case in recent elections in Cameroon. He's going to, as we imagine, reassure that the security measures will be taken for these elections to unfold smoothly. And we will be also listening any other information that he has to give us relative to these upcoming elections. So in this hall, the media is gathered, and we're all expecting the minister any moment from now.
Thanks very much, Bobena Fonkamuta. Other political outfits who have councillors across the country are also set for the regional council elections. Their supporters uphold it will be a solution to the problems caused by the slow implementation of the decentralization process in Cameroon. Constantine Bomb sought to know their reactions in this report.
December 6, 2020 goes down in Cameroon's history as a date for Cameroon's first ever regional elections. Political parties are going back to the drawing board as they get ready for the regional elections.
On the 3rd of September, our national president, Honorable Cabral Levy, signed two decisions where one was at the level of the organizing committee and one was at the level of the principles or the criteria of how to become a candidate. Our participation in the election is going to create a lot, not only at the level of the institution, but equally at the level of those candidates who will be taking part in the election.
It is not long that the country had the twin municipal and legislative elections. So, to some parties, getting back to work is not a major problem.
We are ready to brace ourselves up in order to deliver the toughest battle. You know, we are not alone. We will be many political parties to compete.
Many were waiting for the election date to be announced. It has been announced. They are now strategizing on how to win.
This is exactly what we have been waiting for so long. I mean, it's just come to meet a popular demand.
Today's September 7 presidential decree convoking the Electoral College puts Cameroon's democracy on the right track as it is fast-tracking the decentralization process.
The convocation of the electoral colleges for the regional elections this September 7 is a response to the legitimate yearnings of Cameroonians. It is also a show of the implementation of the policies of a statesman who has a knack for Republican legality. Chief Unity Palace correspondent Ashunienti has this editorial commentary.
Upon voting in the twin municipal and legislative elections on the 9th of February 2020, President Paul Biya said in his exact words, "Very soon after the municipal elections, we shall have to elect regional councillors. The convening of the Electoral College for this election is, therefore, the fulfillment of a firm presidential promise made only 7 months ago. That makes him a man of his word." At that time, the president observed that democracy is making giant strides in Cameroon. He also used the opportunity to alert Cameroonians to the dangers of those he described as small parties calling for a boycott of the elections. those remarks are still as relevant in the current circumstances as if they were made today. But beyond the carrying through of this presidential promise, the holding of regional elections enabled Cameroon to finally complete the setting up of the administrative and political institutions envisaged in the 1996 Constitution. The Constitution stipulates in Section 1 that the Republic of Cameroon shall be a decentralized unitary state. In furtherance of this, Section 55 of the same Constitution provides for a double-chair system of decentralization, stipulating that regional and local authorities of the Republic shall comprise of regions and councils. For now, only the councils in the meaning of the Constitution exist. This impending election will thus complete the nomenclature. It is the first time such an election will be taking place in Cameroon. Furthermore, and this is quite significant to be noted, the election will, in one breath, deepen Cameroon's decentralization option and sharpen some of the rough edges of the country's democracy. Paul Biya's implementation of decentralization has been both methodical and responsible. This is a process that has been nurtured and has now attained maturity with an acceleration of decentralization. On the other hand, it will also fully unveil the reality of the special status that has been granted to the Northwest and Southwest regions in the General Code on Regional and Local Authorities, born of the major national dialogue convened by the head of state. It is, therefore, clear that President Paul Biya's conviction in 2017 that Cameroonian citizens desire greater participation in managing their affairs, especially at the local level, is not mere political rhetoric. He meant what he said.
In other news, we now get this advertorial. MTN Cameroon has a new chief executive officer in the name of Stephen Blewett. The new boss has been given the mantle to ensure that the over 10 million MTN subscribers have quality network. To attain this objective, Stephen Blewett has paid courtesy calls to some administrations, agencies and corporations which are key actors in the telecommunications sector. Beatrice Ngumchil, the MTN boss in Cameroon, and our reports.
The new MTN CEO, Stephen Blewett, has been in the country since August 1. A one-month stay enough to study the business climate in the telecommunications sector and know the task that awaits him. A task that can only be achieved by meeting the right people. His first stop is at the Presidency of the Republic of Cameroon to present himself to government, then to the Telecommunications Regulatory Agency to discuss on questions that preoccupy Cameroonian consumers.
A lot of discussion was around what are we as MTN going to do and what am I going to do as a new CEO to bring the company forward. And a part of that for me is listening to the officials that I've met with today, just hearing and understanding, and then listening to our customers and the people out there. And then we have to respond quickly to give people the best possible service and the best possible products.
And then at the Ministry of Post and Telecommunications for a tete-a-tete with the telecommunications boss. Their discussion is on how to develop the digital economy. The MTN CEO also paid a courtesy call to the CRTV. The CEO and the CRTV management revisited existing contracts and possibilities of renewal, especially with the Shan and CAN in view. Two major competitions that MTN and CRTV can use to make gains.
We do collaborate with MTN through advertising, the streaming, the TV channel of CRT on streaming on the MTN application in terms of developing in the data internet through between CRTV and MTN. We do expect some interesting return on investment.
According to a 2020 report, MTN Cameroon in 2019 made a turnover of 218.7 billion CFA francs in Cameroon.
And that advertorial brings to an end this edition of the 7:30 News, in which you mainly heard that the presidential decree to convene the electoral colleges for the election of regional councillors has been signed by President Paul Biya. The election will hold on December 6, 2020 in the chief town of each division of the country. More news comes up at 8:30 p.m. with Romeo Chuse. I'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. God willing. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to our programs on the CRTV. Stay safe. Good night.
In this connection, we should avoid stigmatizing